Hi, everybody. This is Linda West with Living Live. I help entrepreneurs break through their fears so that they can generate more revenue, gain more confidence, and make a greater impact on the world. Today, I'm here with Dr. Natalie Edmonds, and we're going to talk about dementia caregivers. But before we get started, I want to ask you if you know anybody who has dementia or is caregiving for somebody with dementia, if you could please share this video out to your page, out to any groups you belong in that maybe are involved with caregivers. Please share this out to them because the information that we're going to share today is going to be very valuable and very helpful for everybody. So thank you so much, Natalie. I'm excited to have you here. Before we get started, I'm going to tell you how I met Natalie. Well, it was online. It was on Facebook. I was posting something and she was posting something. And then next thing you know, boom, this synergy happened. And she can tell a story really quick about how we met because I don't remember exactly what group it was, but I led like live video challenges and I've done 3 or 4 of them. And I think that's exactly how Natalie and I met. And she joined the video challenge. Next thing I know, she was in my mastermind. And then I'm just learning all these great things about her and want to share who she is with you guys. So if you want to just really quickly tell how we met, because I think it just shows the power of social media and how powerful it is.
Absolutely. So it was on a Facebook group of some type. I can't even remember the Facebook group that it was, but you had commented some really supportive, encouraging words, and we started a conversation. And then you sent me a link to this, Facebook Live challenge going live group. And I clicked on it, and I don't think I've ever been more scared in my life. My very first live video. I remember going out into my car, making sure nobody can even hear me, not even my husband, and doing this Facebook Live. And since being with you and all of your encouragement and support along the way, it has just been night and day for me. So I truly appreciate everything that you've done for me. I cannot even believe that I'm doing this right now from where I was when you met me.
Well, what's funny is I just realized I could totally use that as a testimonial. Whoop, there you go. I didn't even think about it. So that's awesome. So again, share this with anybody you know who is caring for somebody who has dementia. And now, Natalie, when I first met you, we talked about what you do and how you help people with dementia. So my first question for you is, again, before we get started, if you guys have any questions that you want to ask Natalie, go ahead and put them in the comments. We will see them. And if she's not able to answer a question, she'll either direct you to somebody who can help you, or, we'll just go from there and see what we can help you guys with. But you have created Dementia Caregivers. First of all, why don't you tell us what is Dementia Caregivers and then how you decided to create that?
Okay, awesome. And hello, Kristen and Sanel, who are joining. They are part of the support group. So it's Dementia Care Blazers. So I work for a big, large medical center, and I've always worked in geriatrics since 2018, and more recently, my work is I actually travel the city, and I work with older adults in their home, and their family in their home, because a lot of times with dementia and just aging in general, it's really hard for them to leave their home and go to medical appointments and get the care and treatment and support that they need. So as I'm driving around the city, only able to see a handful of people a day, I had this idea, I really wish I could help more people. The same themes are coming up, the same topics are coming up, the same questions are coming up. And I just wanted to find a way to help as many people as possible. So I had this idea to just bring it to the online space. That way, anybody, whether they could leave their house or not, no matter where you were in the world, as long as you had an internet connection, you could get some basic information and tips and support. So that's how I came up with the idea to do the online space and provide helpful dementia information. But the Care Blazer name came because I was hiking with my husband one day, and we were going through one of the beautiful Arizona trails, and I saw a sign that said no trail blazing. And I started thinking about what that meant, creating a path, going a new way, being a leader in something. And I thought, you know what, this is, instead of a caregiver, which sometimes has negative connotation to it, a lot of, baggage with that word. I thought, Care Blazer, that sounds good. I do want to create a new way. I want to help caregivers feel informed, empowered, have a little bit more control in what is often such a difficult disease where it feels like maybe you don't have control at all. So that's kind of how I got started. And I started this almost exactly a year ago, January 2017. So
well, congratulations and happy anniversary. Well, so I put on the screen fb.com/dementia care blazers. She does have a Facebook group, and you guys are welcome to join that group. So go ahead and go there. Now, before we do that, hold on. Okay, so I wanted to talk about, some of the things like what is the difference between Alzheimer's disease and dementia? And first, is Alzheimer's, is it a disease, and is dementia a disease also? And they just didn't put disease on there, or what? It's kind of confusing for me, just like that.
Okay, this is a great question because it's one of the most common questions I get. But
Okay.
I'm also that Nick just joined and he is a care blazer all the way through. So if there are other care blazers that are joining right now, that is wonderful. Nick actually, I believe, he is the care blazer of the year. Oh my gosh. So
Care Blazer of the Year. Why don't you tell us what that is? And well, let's welcome some of the people who are here live right now. I want to thank you so much. How do you say Sanel? Is that how you said the name? Sanel? So happy to, yeah. So welcome. And to Catherine, welcome. We have Kristen and Catherine. And then Nick, we have here. Thank you guys so much for joining us live. And Natalie is definitely a blessing, isn't she? Absolutely amazing. And then Catherine says, is this video live right now? And I'm unable to view on tablet. Catherine, yes, it is live right now. You'll be able to watch the replay at a later time than if you're not able to watch live. Sorry about that. And then Doreen says, love the name. I do too. I love it. What a great idea to change, caregiver to care blazer, because it's just, like you said, caregiver, it's so tiring. It's like just a tiring word. But when you say care blazer, I just imagine me, going through and just blazing through what I need to do for my family member or whoever it is that I'm caring for. And I cared for my mother for 3 years. We lived with her and took care of her for 3 years. She didn't have dementia or Alzheimer's, but just the caring for somebody, it can be very draining. So when you just think of the word, like I'm a care blazer, just like that, it just uplifts your brain. So great idea. I'm so glad you put that out there. And then last, we have Lori mentioned care in the comments. And I'll let you guys know, if you mention care in the comments, you will receive a copy of Natalie's Survivor's Guide. So go ahead and type care in the comments if you'd like to receive that. Okay, so let's get on with the difference between Alzheimer's disease and dementia.
Okay, so very common question. It's an excellent question. And basically, the difference is dementia is a word that's used to describe a lot of brain changes that are happening. It's not actually a disease. Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia, and there are over 10 different types of dementia. So the way I try to break it down for beginners or people who might not realize it is, let's talk about the word cancer, right? Cancer means somebody's sick. They have a serious disease that they have, but there are so many different types of cancer. Is it brain cancer, lung cancer, skin cancer? The same is true for dementia. Dementia means somebody's having a lot of problem with their brain and ability to think and use it the way that they should be able to use it for their age and education. But there are so many different types and causes of it. So Alzheimer's disease, we hear a lot because it's the most common kind of dementia, and it's the one that's most researched. So when people talk about dementia, they tend to use the word Alzheimer's disease. But we've got Lewy body dementia and vascular dementia and frontotemporal dementia, dementia due to traumatic brain injury and alcohol use. So dementia is just a word to describe somebody's having a lot of these brain problems, thinking problems that are progressively going to get worse in their time.
Wow. So you mentioned, so you can get dementia from alcohol use?
Yes, from long-term, consistent, many, many years, heavy alcohol use, you can.
Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't even know there were so many different types. So thanks for, just like that education alone, it's something really good to be knowledgeable about. How does somebody recognize that their loved one is, because we hear all these jokes about, oh, I have half-timer's disease, or I'm getting old, and so that's why I'm getting forgetful. How do you know when somebody's not just forgetful, but is crossing over to, possible different, like a dementia of the sort?
Yeah. So it can be a challenge, especially in the early phases of dementia or the mild stages of dementia. A lot of times it can go entirely missed by family and close friends. Like when you're so close to it, sometimes you don't even realize that it's happening. People might think, oh, that's just a normal part of aging, or they're just having a bad day, or they didn't sleep well, or they're really stressed. And we tend to kind of, people that we're close to, come up with reasons why they might be struggling. So it's kind of really hard to see in the early stages, and most people don't officially get their diagnosis until the moderate stages, or unless somebody who knows that person, has known them for a long time but has been away for a while, comes back into the picture and they're like, oh, something's not right. So, a lot of people start to get concerned. Am I getting dementia? I'm forgetting some words. They're at the tip of my tongue, but they're not coming out. Or I'm horrible with names. Some things are completely normal, like, difficult finding some words or misplacing an item and then finding it later. Like, we don't need to be that worried if those little things are happening. The key.
Okay.
So the key is, if you're starting to have a lot of memory, thinking, attention problems that are significantly impacting your day-to-day life, like, that's a sign there might be something more going on here, and you should talk to your primary care doctor, who could maybe do a brief test with you or send you to some specialists to do some thorough in-depth testing to find out for sure what's going on. And the other thing I want to mention briefly is that there are so many other things that look like dementia but might not even be dementia at all. People who are older but are depressed can look like they have full-blown dementia, but it's just depression that needs to be treated. Or if you have an infection, like a urinary tract infection, somebody could look like they're totally confused and have moderate dementia, when truly they just, need some treatment for the urinary tract infection. So I would just recommend, if family members are concerned or they're noticing their loved one isn't quite acting as good or as with it as they normally do, go to the primary care doctor, get a checkup, and see what's going on. But dementia is not a normal part of aging. Sometimes people think, oh, that's just old age. It really isn't a normal part of aging. So you should get evaluation, and maybe there are some things that your doctor can go over with you that could help.
So at what point does, as a family member, know that it's time to start, stepping in and giving the care? Because there's got to be like a point, right, where they're self-sufficient still up until a certain point. And then I've heard stories of people saying, taking away the parents' keys and all this stuff, and the parent finds the keys and they go driving and stuff. How do you know how to deal with that stuff?
This is why caregiving is such a challenge, and it's different for everybody. So, not only are there so many different types of dementia that play a role, there's like different stages of dementia, and sometimes it can seem like somebody has a better day than another day. There's different living environments and people involved in the dementia care. So there's not one blanket easy way to answer a question like that. But one of the things any caregiver should be keeping at the front of their mind is safety for their loved one. If their loved one no longer has been leaving, like, for instance, their stove on and forgetting to turn it off, or wandering away from the home and maybe getting lost, or driving their car and when they come back there's like unexplained dents or scratches or paint chips missing from the car, or they were gone for much longer than they should have been and they can't really explain where they were for that long. Like, these are all signs and tips that a family member needs to hop in and get a little bit more involved and find out what's going on with their loved one. One of the most absolute heartbreaking things for me to hear, which I've unfortunately heard too many times, is when their loved ones no longer are able to manage their finances okay. They're really hard situations because they're great victims for scams and people who call their home. And so I've worked with people with dementia and working with their families after somebody lost their entire life savings or retirement or their bank account savings simply because they didn't realize who they were giving sensitive information to. So better safe than sorry, but I know this is easier said than done. It's a really delicate line to walk in terms of, you want to be respectful of your loved one with dementia, give them independence and freedom as possible, but always keeping in mind their safety and potential big consequences that can happen.
Wow, that's so sad. And we do hear about that all the time, people being, taken advantage of. And I get scam calls all the time. So if I were going through that myself, like, even Oh, let me ask you this question, because I don't know much about dementia, but is there a crossover where you're really of sound mind and then do you go through a half and half where you're sound mind and then you're having dementia, or is it like boom, all of a sudden you have dementia?
So
Does the question make sense?
yes, it makes complete sense. And that's a great question. And it a lot of times depends on the type of dementia you have. So when we talk about Alzheimer's disease, that's kind of a very slow, gradual, creeps up on you, kind of surprises family. They don't even realize there've actually been problems going on until it gets really bad. But when we talk about something like vascular dementia, which often occurs after somebody maybe had a stroke, that's like more night and day. You can see somebody was fine one day, they had a stroke, the next day they're not good, and even after months or a year of rehab and cognitive rehabilitation, they don't get better. That's a more really clear switch, from one day okay, one day not.
Okay.
So depends on the type of dementia. And people like to talk about the stages of dementia, and actually my video coming up on Sunday is all about the stages of dementia, because one of my care blazers asked me to do it. But people want to know, like, what stage is my loved one in? It's hard to know sometimes, because some days are better than others. Just like for us, some days are better than others. Whether we sleep well one night or eat a decent meal or feel super stressed, like our brain functions better or worse depending on all those variables. And when somebody has dementia, even the slightest change of variable can really make a magnitude of noticeable difference.
Okay, wow. There's so much to it. I know there's so much. When you mentioned Sunday video, you want to share with us your YouTube channel, or how do they find out about all these videos you've done? Because you've done a lot of videos.
I have.
And yeah, they've been amazing. And you guys, I really highly recommend you subscribing to her channel, but also she's going to tell you how else you can, connect with her. You want to share that really quick before we go to the next questions I have?
Awesome, sure. And I'm actually looking over at my laptop right now, and I'm seeing that there's some awesome people joining, including some more care blazers like Lori.
Welcome.
Hey, and Chris Johnston. She's also Dr. Johnston, wonderful psychologist. So
yes.
So I do right now. I post one video a week on Sundays. You can find them at www.careblazers.com. It's my YouTube page. The subscribe button, join the Care Blazer family. What I do is I try to answer a question, a common concern that comes up a lot in dementia care. And I will do a video on it, post it on Sundays, completely free to you. It's just my way to try to give back to the people who are giving so much of themselves trying to care for their loved one with dementia. Yep, you can just watch them, no charge or anything like that. And what I started doing was just posting videos on things I was seeing in my own practice that happen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But really neat is over, I would say, the last 3-4 months, I'm not even having to generate the content. My care blazers are so awesome. They're just emailing me, or if you can leave a comment under any of my videos with a question or topic you want to know more about, and I'm answering them on future videos. So it's a really nice way to kind of have some access to me and get your questions answered.
That's great. I love that. So that was careblazers.com, correct?
Mm-hmm.
To get there. And then you guys, if you have any questions for Dr. Natalie as we're going, please post them in the comments and we'll address them right now as time permits, because we have about another 20 minutes or so. So if you have any questions, go ahead and post them below. And then Chanel says, Sanel, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. So eye-opening and informative. Exactly. And then Kristen says, so organized and informative. And then I guess this was Dr. Lori, says, get the POA and financial stuff taken care of at first sign. So that's a great point. That's the power of attorney and any financial stuff. So do you have any thoughts on that? Like how they can best make sure they're taking care of that properly, Natalie?
I have a lot of thoughts on it. And actually, because this was a question submitted by a care blazer a couple weeks ago, I post my most recent video that's up at careblazers.com right now. talks about all of the questions and important information that you need to know. So if you go there right now, there's an 11-minute video for you to know everything you need to know about financial power of attorney, medical power of attorney. And Lori Careblazer is absolutely correct. This is important stuff to get taken care of once you know your loved one has dementia.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And so she does have a video for that. So we're not going to spend time talking about that here, but she does have an 11-minute video up. So you guys go ahead and go there and try it out. Check it out. And then we have Nick says, "Oh, trying to listen the best I can. Mom is feeling extra chatty right now." So
this is my blazer of the year here, Nick. He is the epitome of what a care blazer is. He cares for his mother with dementia, and she's extra chatty right now. So I know he's doing a really good job, trying to attend to her.
Yeah,
he has been one of the first and rock star care blazers of our group.
That's awesome, Nick, and keep it up, because that's it's hard to keep yourself motivated, I would imagine. What do you say to people who are having a hard time remaining motivated, through this time, and how long can this last? Because there's no, I hate to ask this question, but is there any turning around? Or if you have dementia
gets
tough question.
Yeah, there is no cure for dementia, and eventually you die from dementia if something else doesn't take your life before then. How long somebody lives with dementia, that varies. They could live 2 years, they could live 10 years. That's a really hard fact for a lot of family members who don't know how long they're in for this, how long their lives have changed dramatically. A lot of these care blazers have put their careers on hold. They've relationships on hold that have been neglected. They've taken financial hits. They feel isolated and alone, like nobody really understands what they're doing. So this is a really hard situation, but the awful truth of the matter is there is no cure for any of the dementias at this point, and there's a lot of research being done as we speak, trying to find something that will help.
That got me very emotional, and I'm an emotional person anyway, but just thinking about somebody going through that, and you don't know how long it's going to be, and it kind of flashed me back to my mom. We didn't know. My mom was fortunate, and we were fortunate. It ended up being only a week, and that the week was hard, for all of us involved, my mom included. And I just can't imagine not knowing, how long it might go on. Yeah. So, okay, let's come out of that, because I don't want to stay there too long, because I'll just get too emotional. But let's see. I wanted to ask you a couple questions. I had a couple questions come in before we got started. So, how are you currently helping caregivers?
Right now, outside of my practice at the medical center, I am posting a video every week. I call it my weekly dose of dementia tips, support, and information for you. An informed caregiver oftentimes feels like a more in control, and that could be helpful just to understand what they're going through is a common but difficult situation in dementia, and then giving them practical tips and ways that they can respond to those difficult behaviors. So that's my primary method right now. I'm pretty excited this year. I have some other dementia professionals who will be joining me for some of my videos for an interview. So I have a nutritionist who specializes in older adults with dementia and talks about nutrition and feeding at the end of life, a clinical psychologist who works with encouraging older adults with dementia to be active and engage in recreational therapy, which could improve their physical functioning and mood. I'm working on getting a pharmacist, a speech pathologist. So that's kind of the new thing to look for in 2018.
Oh, good. So are you looking for people, if there's somebody watching who is in that area and is interested in being interviewed on your show or joining you on your show, are you looking for people for that, or do you already have everybody lined up?
No, I'm always open. The more the merrier. If you have an interest or you somehow work with older adults who have dementia and you would like to be considered for an interview, go ahead and email me. My email address is careblazers@gmail.com. You can reach out to me there. And something that's a little further down the road, because I have a feeling we probably have more caregivers watching than maybe dementia healthcare professionals,
Mm-hmm.
would be a podcast where I talk to Careblazers and talk about their challenges, talk about their struggles, talk about what they do to help cope with the challenges. And I think that would be really valuable for other Careblazers to hear as well. So if you're a Careblazer who might be interested in that aspect, go ahead and email me. Or if you're a dementia healthcare professional and want to be included on the YouTube videos that I'm doing, go ahead and email me there. So that's totally fine.
And then plus you have your Facebook group, which is another way that you can, really like realizing that you're not alone, that this struggle that you have or the challenges that you're facing right now, that you're not alone. There are others out there that you can reach out to that might have tips and tricks to help through certain situations. So the Facebook group is for that too, right?
Well, yeah, I have a Facebook business page right now, which is mostly just maybe informing some caregivers of recent research that has been released or giving them a little bit of support and help along the way. It's not necessarily a group that will be something
Okay.
future, but what I will say is there are some amazing dementia caregiver Facebook groups that exist right now, some with 10,000, 15,000 members. And if you're feeling alone and you're feeling like you're struggling and you're not quite sure what to do, go to that Facebook page and Google Dementia Caregiver Facebook group and find one that really fits with you. And they're all closed, which is private, because I know sometimes it's hard to share the struggles and how you're really feeling on social media because you're worried maybe friends or family might see and they might not.
Yeah.
So it's important to consider a closed Facebook group for those kinds of things.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. I didn't realize, I thought it was a group. So I'm glad you corrected me on that one. Okay, let's see here. We have Sanel says, what would you suggest the best approach on a parent who does not want to accept that there is an issue and we, the kids, are burdened by the situation, not knowing the best approach? Great question. Thank you so much for bringing that question.
Yes, that is a great question. So here's the trap a lot of caregivers get sucked into, and it can be difficult. It is not even important or your job to convince your loved one that they have issues or that they need to accept help. The fact that there's really no good coming from telling your loved one with dementia, you can't do this. It's no longer safe for you to do that. You need my help with this. Not only is that going to create agitation and upset and depression, sadness in your loved one with dementia, that's going to make it more likely for them to kind of act out and have some symptoms that in turn is going to make your life more difficult. In dementia, there's a symptom called anosognosia, and it basically means lack of awareness. So for a lot of people with dementia, their brain is unable to truly fully understand that they even have these impairments, that they have these deficits. So no matter if you talk to them till they're blue in the face, some of them just will not see it your way. So rather than focusing your energy and attention trying to convince your parents what they need, you have to be creative and find some supportive other ways to get what you need done. So I'm trying to think of a good example of what this would be. So,
well, I'm just going to throw something out there. I have no idea. I just really quickly, I posted today, is manipulation if both sides are winning? So I was remembering back to a time, this is a totally unrelated story, you guys, but I'm just going to tell it. Remembering back to a time when I was little, and I think we were about 9 and 10 years old, me and my little sister, and my oldest sister was about 13, and we went trick-or-treating. When we went trick-or-treating, we had all this candy, and we dumped it out in front of ourselves, and then we separated the chocolate from the non-chocolate. Well, I was learning how to be manipulative. My older sister was teaching me how to be manipulative over my younger sister. So she says, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to trade 2 pieces of non-chocolate candy for 1 piece of chocolate candy to our younger sister. So we were all ready to do this. And so we were manipulating my sister to trade what we wanted. And so we got what we wanted. But here's the thing. I didn't know my little sister didn't like chocolate. So she was like, I'm winning. And we were like, I'm winning. Has nothing to do with this question. But is there a way to maybe manipulate the situation so that you're manipulating them to think that they're the ones that are coming up with the idea? That's kind of how I was going with that.
Absolutely. The big difference would be your manipulation in this point would be out of the best interests of your loved one with dementia. So for example, let's say your loved one with dementia is no longer safe to be at home during the day, but you work during the day, so you can't leave your loved one home alone. Rather than losing the battle of trying to convince your loved one, you cannot stay home alone anymore. It is unsafe. You could wander away. You might not find your way back. You could burn down the house. You're forgetting to turn off the stove. Rather than all of that, which are true facts, you could say something like, hey, there's a new senior club down the road. There's some people there that would love to meet you, and it would be a fun way for you to spend your day. Done. It's still the truth, but there's no need to highlight your loved one's impairments. That So forget about trying to convince your loved one they have dementia. That's a losing battle for the most part.
So then what if they say, well, I don't want to go there. I don't want to get dressed or whatever. I don't like the way my hair looks today or whatever. What do you do then?
So care blazers are going to have to find ways to get really good at trying to encourage and support their loved ones to do things they don't want to do. It is not uncommon for somebody with maybe moderate to severe dementia to not want to take a shower, not want to eat anything besides cookies all day, not want to change their clothes, right? So it's all about the way you approach the situation, the way you pose it to them, and it's trial and error. If you try something and it doesn't work, you wait a bit and then you try it again. So there's a lot of examples on my videos over on YouTube that kind of talk about these things, difficult dementia behaviors and how to respond to them. And what works for one person might not work for another. It really depends. You know your loved one with dementia best, so you know their values, you know what's important to them. So if they've always enjoyed being the life of the party and having friends, then you can speak to that. If they've always enjoyed doing puzzles or working their mind, then you can speak to that interest. So you're just going to have to be creative and find ways to pose things to them in a way that will hopefully get them to agree. I will say that there are times that no matter how you pose it or how you do it, sometimes your loved one with dementia just might not want to make it happen. And that's what makes dementia caregiving really hard in a lot of situations, because you're having to make decisions and actions for your loved one who may not want that help. But that part of the disease doesn't allow them to see that they need the help. So that's where it's really hard, because caregivers are sacrificing their time, their energy, their emotions, their money, everything to make sure their loved one's well taken care of and well safe. And in response or in return, they're often not appreciated by their loved one with dementia. And in fact, that person with dementia may even sometimes seem to hate them or resent them because they see them as somebody who's interfering. So it's a really huge emotional toll that comes along with being a dementia caregiver. And this isn't always the case. People are different. There's definitely people out there with dementia who are just as happy and lovely and wonderful as can be and will do whatever you need them to do. So it's not always the case, but for the care blazers that are watching my videos and who are communicating with me and telling me what they're going through, these are the struggles.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Now Nick asks, is it important to establish what stage mom is at and how is that determined? Great question.
So there are two different staging models, and Nick, on Sunday, my video will be on my YouTube page that answers this question for you. It's really not that important. It's not going to be the end of the world if you don't know what stage your mother is in, but it's determined basically by looking at a lot of their behaviors. So they're either in the mild stage, the moderate stage, or the severe stage. So in the mild stage, they might forget a name here or there, might forget directions, or it might be harder for them to remember directions to common places, but they can kind of get their stuff together. This is the phase where family members can easily make excuses for why their loved one is starting to kind of seem like they're losing things. The moderate stage is when you really start to notice, okay, they're wandering away, they're getting lost, they're leaving the stove on, they're starting to have issues with their bowels or being able to control their bowels. And then severe stage, they end up barely able to be verbal, no longer able to manage their own personal hygiene or basic behavior. Sometimes they're no longer able to walk, though it gets to be really clear. Sometimes caregivers just want to know as much as they can about the disease, so staging helps. There's another more detailed staging model. It's 7 stages. I talk about it in my video on Sunday. But in the end, there's mild, moderate, and severe. And based on what you see in your loved one and the behaviors, you kind of try to figure out on your own what it is. That's kind of the clinical way to determine what stage somebody with dementia is in. There are some more researchy ways that providers, researchers, clinicians, and doctors and hospitals can use, like formalized, standardized tests that they can go through and through an interview with your loved one with dementia, one with you, and their behaviors and what they do during the day, they can kind of come up with a more formal way to tell what stage they're in. But all in all, it's really, you can still be a very excellent caregiver, giving very great quality of life to your loved one with dementia and not really know what stage they're in.
Does dementia have an age, or can it happen to somebody who's young, or what do they see as far as the research goes?
Yeah, technically, dementia means that it's a degenerative process. Your brain no longer works as good as it did before.
Okay.
So let's say you had a perfectly working brain, you're 16 years old, you got into a car accident, you had a traumatic brain injury, went through a lot of rehab, not really improved. Technically, you could meet criteria for dementia for a traumatic brain injury, right? So you could get that type of dementia. There's an early onset, for instance, Alzheimer's dementia, but that's 40s, 50s. That's still pretty young for dementia. The vast majority of dementias are in older adults, but there are situations that if for some reason a really healthy, normal working brain all of a sudden started started to decline and was unable to get back to where they were, and that decline was severe enough that it was impacting their day-to-day life, and they took formal assessments, and those assessments showed that their brain is not working where it should be compared to their age and education, then technically, yeah, they would meet criteria.
Oh, wow. Oh gosh. I just have so many questions, but so I'm going to go to A.L. Trombley mentions, hello, is it possible a person has Lewy body?
Yep.
And traumatic brain injury dementia. My loved one was diagnosed with Lewy body by several doctors, but a couple of doctors at hospital said it was caused by traumatic brain injury. Great question.
That is a great question. You can have more than one type of dementia. Absolutely. And it's probably more common than a lot of people think. It's not as simple as some people like to wrap their heads around, having more than one type of dementia. But yeah, it is absolutely possible to have Alzheimer's disease and Lewy body dementia, or Lewy body dementia and traumatic brain dementia due to traumatic brain injury. So.
Now that begs another question for me, because traumatic brain injury, kids can get that, playing sports. We've heard of it many times that kids, age 6 and 7 are playing Pop Warner football and they have a traumatic brain injury. So what happens if they're that young? Is there a way to circumvent to make sure that, there's no guarantee that they're never going to get dementia, but is there something that they can do at that young age to maybe lessen the chances of it turning into dementia later?
Yeah, so our brains are amazing. Like, they really are able to withstand a lot of harm and work their way, start to improve, especially kids. A lot of people have traumatic brain injuries, are in car accidents, get concussions, and they recover and are able to function completely fine. Just because you have a traumatic brain injury doesn't mean you're guaranteed to have dementia later in life.
Okay.
There's somebody who has traumatic brain injury, followed by traumatic brain injury, followed by traumatic brain injury, and you have a lot of TBIs in your past, you're at higher risk to get dementia in the future, but it's not necessarily a guarantee.
Okay, wait, hold on. Here we go. I'm back. Okay. I keep disappearing every once in a while when you're speaking there. Wow, that's very interesting, because I know I've heard some studies or cases of people like Junior Seau, for example. He had a lot of TBIs. He was hit a lot when he was playing football. So I know that happens to a lot of people. So it's interesting. I'm not saying like don't do it, but just be aware that there is a possibility that because your brain has been hit so many times that there might come a point where it doesn't recover as it had in the past. The brain is crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a risk you take, but you also have to weigh that to how you want to live your life and the quality
Yeah.
of life. So,
Yeah. And then, we want to live our lives to the best of our ability every single day. And, for me, I'm a huge proponent of have as much fun as you can and do the things you absolutely love doing. So let's see. Lori says, Mom stopped walking, just baby steps and fork to mouth. But with work, she is back standing and feeding a loaded fork. Don't give up on them too soon. That's awesome. You want to mention that? Talk about that?
yes, this is like the heart and soul of a care blazer, right? You do what you can do. You try to take steps to help better your loved one, improve their quality of life. You don't just give up when they're having a bad day, and you work with them and see what you can do to make, improve the situation. Absolutely. A couple of bad days, a couple of bad weeks with work, with rehab, with getting people involved in social activities, a lot of encouragement and support. You can hear stories like Lori's all the time. This is wonderful to read about and hear.
Yeah, I love that. Huge smile on our face for sure. Okay, let's see. Kristen says, keep up the great work, Natalie. I have to run, but we'll catch the rest of it. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Kristen.
Thank you for joining.
Yeah, and I had a couple more questions here. Another one that came in before we got started is, what are some of the biggest struggles that caregivers face?
Oh, let's see. This is like a laundry list, but the
Okay.
common that I see that create a lot of stress. One would be difficult dementia behaviors, meaning when somebody likes to wander away or somebody doesn't want to change their underwear, or somebody is, placing their family in danger because they refuse to give up cooking but can't remember to turn off the stove, or when somebody with dementia gets really kind of nasty and mean and says a lot of hurtful, mean comments to their loved one. So a whole category in terms of dementia difficult behaviors, how to manage keeping your loved one safe, but also not sending yourself down a dark tunnel of despair because you're hearing a lot of nasty, hurtful, hateful comments from your loved one with dementia. The other one would be just, caregivers are at significant risk. They have higher rates of depression than the general population. Their health also takes significant hits. So a lot of times their care blazers or caregivers are so good at caring for their loved one with dementia, but they're not very good at caring for themselves, right?
Selves, yeah.
Yeah. Another hard part about being a caregiver is just how do you manage it all? There's only so much time in a day. There's only so much money. There's only so many people willing to help. That gets to be a challenge in itself. And I would say just the emotional aspect of caregivers who are starting to build a lot of resentment that they've given up so much of their lives to take care of their loved one with dementia, but other family members don't necessarily chip in or help out as much as they could. That builds resentment. Caring for somebody and sacrificing so much for somebody who may not appreciate it or understand what you're doing for them. That's another challenge of caregivers. And then also just where to get help. Like, where do you go to get help? Like, caregivers need extra help. How do they get it? Where do they turn to? A lot of times after a diagnosis of dementia, not all the time, but a lot of times you go to a doctor, you get a diagnosis of dementia, maybe you get a medication, maybe you don't, and then it's kind of like you're on your own. So it can feel very overwhelming, and caregivers can feel really lost at where do I even go for support? What resources are out there? Where can I turn to? So those are a lot of the common big struggles that caregivers face.
Wow, it's so much stuff. And I know so AL has a question here. He says, thank you, ladies. Now, please suggest ways to help lessen episodes and hallucinations. Please, please, please. It's heartbreaking. We've experienced everything and come back to his normalcy considering his dementia.
Are the hallucinations visual hallucinations?
Okay, so we might not get a response from that for a minute or so because it's kind of delayed sometimes. So we'll go. So AL, if you can mention, are they delusional hallucinations? Are there different types?
Yeah, visual hallucinations. So
Oh,
I
visual.
think the gentleman who talked about maybe his loved one having Lewy body dementia. And with Lewy body dementia, there are visual hallucinations that come along with that. They might see bugs crawling on their skin, or little children in the room that aren't there. There are a couple different ways. In dementia, the primary method of treating behavioral symptoms is always behavioral approaches. Medications are usually the secondary line once all other options have been exhausted. So, as much as possible, trying to calm your loved one with dementia, reassure your loved one with dementia that things are going to be okay. Try to address their underlying emotion that you're going to keep them safe, that you're there for them. Another thing I would say is that sometimes people use the word hallucinations, and it's absolutely positive your loved one is having hallucinations. But there are also other things in dementia, like illusions, where something's there, but they're misperceiving it. So then you would treat that a little bit differently than you would a true hallucination. But Al, I really like this question, and I think it warrants like a longer, better explanation that maybe I can do in an upcoming CareBlazer YouTube video that I will post. So look out for that if you want to hop on over there. I will absolutely do a full video on this topic: illusions, hallucinations, delusions, all these kinds of things that happen with dementia. But sometimes there are cases where if a loved one is having significant hallucinations that behavioral approaches have not been able to manage, then you want to talk to your loved one's primary care doctor and see if there is any medications that could help with that.
Okay, thank you. I just can't imagine how tough that is. So he says that he sees people that have passed, little children, dogs that have passed, and they've been at it for a year. So you'll be addressing, though, that in one of your future videos.
I will. And sometimes, with dementia and Lewy body dementia, they can see these things. And if they're not bothered by it, if it's not causing them distress, then, it's okay. If it's causing them a lot of distress, that seeing these things, then that's when we really want to try our behavioral approaches to intervene, offer them support and calm and care for them, and then talk to the primary care provider about medications that could help if that doesn't work.
And that's a great point there, because it might be bothering the CareBlazer more than it is the person, right? And that happens with other things in life too. Like something you're like, God, what they're doing just drives me nuts, and it's something that they're like really happy about. So I guess it's important to make sure you're not over exaggerating a situation and turning it into something that it doesn't really need to be. Maybe, I don't know if I'm not a doctor at all, so I don't know what I'm talking about, by the way. I'm just a lady talking.
Appreciate what you're saying. I mean, basically, sometimes we get really disturbed because the symptoms our loved ones are having are not normal symptoms. These are things we don't really expect to hear about or even know about really until we started seeing them in our loved ones. So we can be really concerned, and you should always bring up concerning symptoms or new symptoms that you're not quite sure about with your loved one's doctor. But sometimes with hallucinations in particular, visual hallucinations, if they're not bothered by them, it's okay. Now, if visual hallucinations all of a sudden pop up in your loved one with dementia overnight and seem to really be bothering them and they weren't there before, that could be the sign of a medical emergency, and you should call your doctor right away. It could be an infection or something like that that could be easily treated. So there's all kinds of reasons somebody might start to have hallucinations in dementia, but Lewy body dementia in particular tends to have a lot of visual hallucinations like Al just described. So it could be that.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, then he says the latest approach is yesing him to death and going along with him instead of aggravating him. So, yeah, just trying something new, right, to see how it works for everybody.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to ask one more question before we go, because we're running out of time here. Let's see. I had 3 questions that came in. So let me see the one I want to go to here. Well, what recommendations do you have for caregivers or CareBlazers?
Yes, CareBlazers, caregivers, anybody. Yeah. Try to educate yourself, inform yourself of what's going on. You can do that easily for free on my YouTube video, but also consider surrounding yourself with other people going through your situation, because a lot of times they have support. They can give you support and tips and ways to manage some of the most hard things about dementia because they've also been through it. So an easy way to do that would be to go to some of the closed Facebook groups and find one that suits you. Again, those are free. Also, Area Agency on Aging, Google it. There's one in most every area in America, and call them up, tell them about your situation with your loved one, and ask them what resources are available in your community. So again, that's the Area Agency on Aging. There's also eldercare.gov, where you can type in where you live and see what resources are available around you. And finally, the Alzheimer's Association has a 24/7 number that you could call if you need to learn some resources, if you want more information, if you're feeling super stressed, if you want to know where support groups are in your area. So that's also a helpful spot. And that number, let's see, for the Alzheimer's Association 24/7 helpline is 1-800-272-3900. So those would be just some of the recommendations I have for a caregiver.
Awesome. Yeah, I put that one on the screen there. I hope I typed it right. It looks like it's right. 272-3900.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, Natalie, thank you so much. And I always love, hearing what you have to share. Your knowledge is just vast, and people can learn so much from you, especially by following you on your YouTube channel. And then, going to Dementia Careblazers. Was it DementiaCareblazers.com, correct?
No, careblazers.com.
Oh, careblazers.com.
So go to my weekly free videos. If you have any questions whatsoever about dementia, or you want me to do a future video on a topic, just leave a comment below any of my videos, or shoot me an email at careblazers@gmail.com. I read all my emails. I read all my comments. I want to give back as much as I can for all of you doing so much. So don't hesitate to reach out to me there, and I will do my best to answer your question.
Awesome. And then lastly, type CARE in the comments below, and you will receive, my messenger bot will send you the Dementia Careblazer Survival Guide. And that's Natalie's guide to help you through these trying times. And if you guys have any other questions, you can, comment below, and Natalie will see the questions. If she doesn't, I will tag her, and just to make sure she gets them. And that you guys are helping her to build her channel, that she can provide this valuable information to you as well. So hopefully this was very informative for you. If it was, please share this video out, because you never know who in your circle is going through something like this, or is just embarking on this journey, and they maybe haven't wanted to tell you yet. So you don't know who might be going through something like this. So please share this out on your page, so we can get as much information out to people as possible, and so that they can also join Natalie's YouTube, learn as much as they can about dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So again, Natalie, thank you so much. Is there any parting words that you want to share with us?
No, Linda, thank you so much for having me on. This has been really fun. And, to all you caregivers out there, join the Careblazer family. And we would love to have you. And I just wish you all the best of luck on this journey that you're on.
Yeah, thank you so much. And everybody have a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.
Bye.